For 5 remarkable years, Kathy English has steered the CJF through both challenging times and growth with unwavering dedication. She's been the chair. She navigated some really tough times, some significant headwinds, an unprecedented disruption of COVID, while also expanding the impact through initiatives like the Black Journalism Fellowship. As program co-chair, Kathy's ensured that this programming remains really important, really vital in these rapidly changing times. And then also, artificial intelligence comes out, and some of us are like, I don't want to think about this. Not Kathy. When artificial intelligence emerged as a challenge here, Kathy represented the foundation on the international stage with wisdom and with foresight, helping shape some critical conversations around editorial policy. The strength of this foundation right now stands as a testament to her leadership. So to present the very final award of the night, the CJF Dr. Eric Jackman Award for Excellence in Journalism, Large Media, please welcome the outgoing chair of CJF, Kathy English.
Serving as chair of this foundation that does so much vital work has just been an honor and privilege of my life in journalism. There's so many people to thank, but tonight I'm going to start just with Natalie Turvey, our outstanding president. She makes all this magic happen. And so much more. I don't know what I'm going to do without the weekly phone calls. More than one a week. And my mentor, Maureen Shaughnessy Kitts, you told me you wouldn't leave the foundation until I was done, and you, of course, are true to your word, being Maureen. And, of course, none of this would be possible. None of us would be here without our founder, Dr. Eric Jackman, so thank you. Thank you to every board member who's here in this room and who's not here, and really special thanks to all our sponsors and within the Canadian business community. Those of you who truly understand that journalism matters, it's amazing to me that you sign on to our mission and that you get it, that you understand journalism. A great big thank you to all the Canadian journalists who just always inspire me with the important work that you do of serving citizens with facts, with stories that matter, that serve democracy and talk about our human condition. And now I know you want to get to Kendrick Lamar. So we are going to get on with the last award. Each of this year's nominated teams provided Canadians with stirring, fact-filled narratives that represent journalism at its finest. Narratives that accomplish what journalism is meant to do: inform, educate, and hold those in power to account. Congratulations and thank you to each of this year's nominees. I'm going to run through them very quickly and then we will announce the winner. First of all is CBC News, The Fifth Estate, for Everybody's Afraid of Frank. An in-depth investigation into a powerful billionaire businessman, Frank Stronach, as he stands accused of multiple allegations for sex crimes. Le Devoir, for a multi-part investigation that follows the fate of individuals in the Quebec judicial system who have been found not criminally responsible for their actions. Global News, for The New Reality, the Business of Indigenous Kids in Care, an investigation into the treatment of Indigenous youth in the child welfare system, including findings of these youth being preyed upon by for-profit group home companies. The Globe and Mail, for its investigation into a listeria outbreak at a food processing facility that left 3 people dead and others seriously injured. W5 CTV News, for Narco Jungle. This series immerses viewers into the secret realities of the world's 2 most dangerous migrant routes, Colombia's Darien Gap and Mexico's notorious Death Train. That is some powerful, powerful journalism. And the 2025 CJF Dr. Eric Jackman Award for Excellence in Journalism, Large Media category, goes to Global News. Congratulations.
Wow, thank you. About 2 years ago, I got a phone call while I was making breakfast in my very privileged Midtown home for my young kids. It was an 18-year-old girl from Treaty 3 who called, her voice breaking, with a noose in her room. She said, "I don't know what to do." The moment that brought her there, that morning, was years in the making. She was a girl who had been ripped from her community and her home and traveled thousands of kilometers south, placed into a for-profit group home that put dollar signs over her head. Phone calls like that stick with you. You remember that? Yeah. For people who think that the era of residential schools is over, that reconciliation is something that's finished, well, we need to look harder at what's happening today. We spent 3.5 years reporting on the child welfare system in Ontario until we got a tip that I didn't think or I didn't want to be true. We were reporting on for-profit group homes. So often when kids, they say, aren't successful in foster home, they're sent to group homes. These are homes, if you will, often run by for-profit companies whose business is making a buck off kids in the child welfare system. And these sources we had developed over years whispered in our ears, you know, Indigenous kids are worth more in the system. And I didn't want it to be true. I didn't think today it could be true. But we kept asking. And what we heard were they were called the cash cows. They were called the bread and butter of this industry. And so after 3 years reporting on this topic, I did what I had done many times before, and I turned to Craig, my editor, and I said, "Just one more. Will you let us do just one more story?" And he said, "Yes, because it matters." But proving that would be probably the most difficult project I've ever done in my career. We submitted dozens and dozens of freedom of information requests across the country, in provinces and territories at the federal level and provincial levels. And we created database after database. We received over 8,000 pages of contracts from the government of Nunavut and in Ontario. And with numbers, truths became apparent which otherwise were not. That Indigenous well-being societies and child welfare societies were being overcharged for Indigenous youth and youth from Nunavut to come to live in these private group homes in southern Ontario compared to non-Indigenous youth and their respective child welfare societies. This was an extraordinarily emotional project that we lived, that our families lived, and we walked in locked arms every step of the way. Craig, myself, Alison Vushnik, Andrew Russell, Andrew McIntosh, Michael Robel, Melissa Ridgen. Many of those journalists are no longer with Global News. In fact, the current affairs show, The New Reality, no longer exists. We all know media is in a crisis right now. But investigative journalism matters. It's expensive. It is time-consuming. It is arduous. But it matters because the kids matter. And we all have a collective responsibility to look after them. Thank you.